Lucci's family and children were front and center upon his release from prison. Through a long and trying period, filled with uncertainty, anguish, and the deep emotional toll that often comes with such a publicized battle, YFN Lucci was finally set free. It was a moment that his fans, family, and supporters had been waiting for, knowing that for over 3 years, the rapper had been trapped in a situation that not only hindered his career but also weighed heavily on his personal life. The news broke on January 31st when the Georgia Department of Corrections confirmed that YFN Lucci had been released earlier that day, officially marking the end of a long and agonizing chapter in his life. For many, this news was a source of both hope and disbelief. His fans had remained faithful, waiting for the day when they could hear from him again, when they could experience the art that had once placed him in the spotlight. Lucci's release was a sign of victory, but it also came with mixed emotions for those closest to him. For every supporter celebrating his return to freedom, there were also those who questioned the toll that such a lengthy imprisonment would take on the rapper's mental health, his career trajectory, and his relationships. In a world that often glorifies success and fame without recognizing the deeper consequences of such a life, Lucci's time behind bars highlighted a different kind of struggle, a struggle that many did not understand but could still empathize with. What would Lucci do now? How would he navigate the world after such a tumultuous experience? Loren LaRosa, who had been one of the primary figures in supporting Lucci during his time in prison, shared an update that gave fans a glimmer of hope in the weeks leading up to his release. It had been clear from the start that Lucci's release was a matter of when, not if, but still the uncertainty surrounding the exact timing left everyone on edge. Lauren's words were a beacon for fans. "A source close to the rapper tells me Lucci will be released any day now," she had tweeted with a sense of anticipation that matched the feeling of thousands of others eagerly waiting. Her words held the kind of certainty that calmed fears, despite the anxiety that came with the situation. Every fan, every family member, and every close associate of YFN Lucci had been in a holding pattern, hoping for a signal, a sign that their patience would be rewarded. The phone calls, the waiting game, it was all part of the process, a frustrating yet necessary part of the journey. Yet, even as the fans rejoiced in the news of Lucci's release, it was clear that there was still much to be done. The rapper's release came with conditions, some of which Loren hinted at in her update. According to her, these conditions weren't anything too crazy, but they were still part of the deal. After years of being confined to prison, there would be rules, limitations, and responsibilities that would need to be followed. For someone who had lived a life of constant attention, fame, and freedom, these restrictions were sure to come as a stark contrast to the life Lucci had once known. But they were also a reminder of the consequences that had brought him to this point in the first place. Lucci's legal troubles had been publicized on a massive scale, and for many, they were a defining part of his career. Back in 2021, when he was arrested on RICO charges, his life was turned upside down. The weight of the charges, which connected him to criminal activity linked to organized crime and gang-related offenses, was immense. It wasn't just a personal battle for Lucci, it was one that captivated his fans, the media, and even the broader culture that had followed his career from the beginning. The trial was more than just a legal fight, it was a cultural moment. His fans felt every twist and turn, every new development in his case. During this time, there were moments when it seemed as though Lucci's career might never recover. In the world of hip-hop, the stakes were high, and with each passing day, it seemed like Lucci was losing more and more of the potential that had once made him a rising star. Yet, in spite of everything, his supporters remained loyal. Fans flooded social media with messages of encouragement, expressing hope for his release, praying for his strength in the face of adversity. The loyalty of his fan base was undeniable, and it helped to sustain him in ways that the outside world could not understand. In the months following his arrest, the legal process took its course, and Lucci found himself facing a significant sentence. He pled guilty to violating Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, a charge that placed him on a path that many thought would see him behind bars for many more years. When the judge handed down the sentence, 10 years behind bars followed by 10 years of probation, it felt like a death sentence for his career. For a rapper whose rise to fame had been marked by his boldness, his authenticity, and his unique style, this sentence seemed like it would silence him forever. But even as his world crumbled, his fans refused to give up on him. They stood by him, eager to see him free again, to witness the moment when he would rise from this dark period and reclaim his place in the world of music. In November of the previous year, the news about Lucci's potential parole provided a faint light at the end of the tunnel. Think It's a Game Records, his label, took to social media to share the hopeful update that there was a tentative parole date set for January 2025. It was a step in the right direction, but it wasn't a guarantee. Still, for those who had supported him through his darkest days, it was enough to believe that the end of his incarceration was within sight. That belief grew stronger when Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis wrote a letter to the State Board of Pardons and Paroles in July 2024, expressing support for Lucci's early release. Her letter made it clear that, provided Lucci continued to exhibit good behavior in prison, the state had no objections to his release. This was another key moment for Lucci, as it suggested that there was still a chance for him to return to the outside world sooner than expected. But still, despite all the legal developments and the emotional support from fans, there was one element of Lucci's life that remained uncertain: his personal relationships. As his release approached, many wondered about his romantic life. Would he seek to reconnect with Reginae Carter, Lil Wayne's daughter, with whom he had shared a highly publicized relationship? The answer came swiftly and decisively when Reginae herself spoke out. During an appearance on The Morning Hustle, she made it clear that she had no intentions of rekindling her romance with YFN Lucci. For many fans, this was a disappointment. The idea of Lucci and Reginae getting back together had been a fantasy for many who had followed their love story over the years. But Reginae's words were blunt, putting an end to any hope of a reunion. It was a moment that reinforced the reality of the situation. Lucci was free, but his relationship with Reginae was part of his past, not his future. Now that Lucci was free, the question turned to what he would do next. What path would he choose in this new chapter of his life? Would he return to the world of music, where he had once made a name for himself with tracks that resonated with so many? Or would he take a different route, focusing on his personal growth, healing, and reconnection with his family? These were questions that no one had answers to, and for now, the world could only speculate. For the time being, YFN Lucci's return to the public eye was still a story in the making. While the details of his next steps remained unclear, one thing was certain: his release marked a significant moment not only in his life but also in the lives of his fans and family. The next chapter in YFN Lucci's story had only just begun, and the world was waiting to see how it would unfold.